Okay, so everybody who is on the Zoom, can they see the Manglacharan?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay. Om Jnanatimidandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swaparantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshitarine Shri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayane Prabhave Namah Namo Gaura Kishoraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namah Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Satchidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Sarupaya Rupanugavarayate Gaura Virbhava Bhume Stam Nirdeshta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Shri Jagannathayate Namah Shri Rup Sri Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Ji Gopal Bhatta Raghunath Eche Gosai Kara Charana Bandhan Jahavite Vignanash Avishta Puran. So Hare Krishna, today is February 25th, 2020. An auspicious day. We are starting our offering of the Bhakti Sastri course. This is local action with the Verse0 on this end. And all of you who are there, on the other end, I can see Sanju is there, Vishal is there. Who else is there on the Zoom? Bhakti Lata is there. And on the conference call, we have Sumit, Nikunja Sakhi, Priyankar, Shingaras, Kalindi Prema, and who else is there? Anybody else?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Yeah, this is Yogesh.
Hare Krishna, Yogesh, Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
And also Srinivas.
Dandavat Pranam Prabhuji.
Dandavat
Pranam.
Who is there?
Yes, I'm there.
So, thank you all for joining. This is.
Did we miss anyone? Is there anyone else?
Yeah, Vedashri is also there, but she will join in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem.
You. No worries.
So, the Bhakti Sastri course, I'll just give a brief introduction what this course is, what it will entail, what you can expect to get out of it, and how we'll proceed, and all those other details. So, Bhakti Sastri, Prabhupada wanted all his followers to become experts in studying his books and absorbing these books, and also being able to present these books to others. So, he wanted these 4 books to be studied in great depth: Bhagavad Gita, Sri Ishopanishad, and then Nectar of Devotion and Nectar of Instruction. The last 2 books were written by Srila Rupa Goswami, and Prabhupada wrote a commentary on those books. So these 4 books are quite a bit. Bhagavad Gita and Ishopanishad, they kind of establish the Siddhanta, or the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. Our relationship with Krishna and who Krishna is to some extent. And Nectar of Devotion and Nectar of Instruction, they go a little bit deeper into the personality of Krishna and how to practice bhakti. So we'll start with Nectar of Instruction. And we'll explain the reason in a second. And after Nectar of Instruction, we'll do Sri Ishopanishad, which is a little bit more philosophical. Then we'll come back to Nectar of Devotion, which is again more devotional. And then we'll end with Bhagavad Gita, which is the largest. Some people start with Bhagavad Gita, but because it's so big, sometimes it takes a long time and people get discouraged. So we'll start with these smaller books first. Nectar of Devotion will not do the whole book. It's first 19 chapters that are needed for the Bhakti Sastri. And the Bhakti Sastri, the main work is studying all these books ahead of our class. So we'll tell you next class what we will be discussing. So you'll be, if you can read the material beforehand. And so that's one thing. Another thing is regular homework that we will post on the learning management system. Maybe Sanju Prabhu, you can help me with the setting of the Moodle and creating accounts for everybody. I've never used that, so maybe you can help me set that up. And then there will be homeworks for everybody. And if you can do it, that is the best. And it's basically for your own. I won't be hard and fast about doing the homework every single week. But that is something that will help with your own growth.
But also there are two tracks, right? There are those that are serious about getting the Bhakti Sastri degree. And so they would be on a different track. And then there are those who have joined our session who are just there. Basically, they need association and just to, get.
Yeah.
Right? So
some people are just auditing. And so they're not expected to do anything. And some people who actually want to get a degree for you. So there will be a few tasks. One is doing these homeworks. The other one is memorizing some verses that I will let you know ahead of time. For each book, you can memorize some verses. And then finally, there will be an exam for that particular book. So there will be 4 exams, one for each book. Bhagavad Gita will have 2 exams. We'll break it up into first 9 chapters and the last 9 chapters. So it sounds a little bit like daunting, but don't get overwhelmed by the exams and all these things. As long as you go through the course, you all will pass the exam, that I can guarantee right now. So don't worry about the exam at all. Don't study these books from the point of view of passing the exam, because if you do that, then you will just pass the exam. Most of your energy will be spent in passing the exam, and you will kind of overlook the part of absorbing these books into your life. And that is our focus, that when you are studying these books, the main focus is to understand these books and learn to apply them in your life. And that is the real Bhakti Sastri, that you really able to even apply even one principle from each book, then you have really gained a lot, and the course is successful for you.
Actually, in some ways, it is better to flunk these books so that you can go back and keep studying them over and over again, and not have this feeling of we're really, really what we're doing is we're sitting close to the lotus feet of Prabhupada and sitting close to the lotus feet of Rupa Goswami and just trying to hear from them.
Yeah.
And that is our mood. Our mood is not to capture these books or conquer these books or master these books. Our purpose is to become a servant of these books, not to become a master of these
That's
books.
a very good point, that sometimes, especially coming from the Indian background, many of you, we have this mentality, I'll crack these books and I'll memorize the shlokas and I know everything in what is where in these books. And that is well and good, but we want to be humble servants of this book. So in one sense, as you are saying, it's good to flunk these books, flunk the exam. So we realize that I don't really know anything. So, and this is how we'll be approaching these books also when we are talking about, and we want to make it a conversation, so that you are also able to see, okay, when you're reading these books, where my obstacles are, where are my obstacles in my own personal growth, bring that out and discuss that so that everybody can benefit. It's not just about us giving you some information, you making notes and passing the exams, because then you're only probably getting 5 or 10% out of this whole Bhakti Sastri course. The real growth will be to develop a deep relationship with Prabhupada, a deep relationship with Rupa Goswami and the Acharyas, and develop that connection that will actually help you through the rest of your devotional life.
Actually, I was thinking that, we always talk about the mission of any particular course. So the mission of the course is really that at the end of the course, it's not that, oh, I know these books. The mission of the course is actually, I don't know anything. And that is the meaning of the vastness and the nature of living, because these books are living. So the more we approach, the more we study, the more we should feel that actually I have only scratched the surface. And so that's what we want. We don't want that at the end we feel like, okay, we've cracked it. We know this. And the other thing I was also thinking was that those that have already been doing Bhakti Sastri in different other places, this would also be a good opportunity for you to actually, maybe will, you know, here and there, will ask you to maybe share
your realizations,
share your understanding.
Yeah, on some of the topics that we'll be talking about. So this will also allow you to bring it out and discuss it further. So logistical wise, the class, right, today we'll just do a shorter class because we wanted to just see whoever is interested, bring them all together. And starting next Tuesday, we'll need an hour and a half of your time so that we can finish these books in a meaningful amount of time. Today we'll read from the preface of the Nectar of Instruction. If you don't have it, you can go to vedabase.com and look for the Nectar of Instruction book, and then you can read it online. We're also showing it in the Zoom. Those of you who are on the phone, you can access it whichever way you want. You can get a physical copy from Madan Murari. He should have some copies of Nectar of Instruction with him, or you can look at it online.
And I like what you're saying, that, you know, another focus from our side would be to really, because Krishna consciousness is not a theoretical science, it's a practical science. So one of the things we'd really like to create in this Sangha here is an opportunity for us to really talk about the application of these principles, because that's where the rubber meets the road. So we'll spend enough time understanding the theory, but we'll also spend some time discussing the application and our obstacles in being able to apply that.
It's very important to do that application. So whenever you are reading, we'll also discuss how, when you're reading these books, what should be the mood when you're reading these books, and asking important questions as you're reading them. So this has really helped me. Like when you're reading these books, of course you read them as a student, but also read them as a teacher. Like when you're reading, finding the connections and asking questions all the time in your own mind, and also thinking how will I explain this, or how will I present this to somebody else who doesn't know anything about this topic. So reading these books both from the mindset of a student, but also from the mindset of a teacher. That will actually, somebody has background noise. So when you're studying it from the point of view of a teacher as well, then your development will be different than when you're just reading, because then you're also thinking on your own.
So maybe we'll pause here and see if you guys have any questions so far before we start with the preface.
Yeah.
Anything we have spoken so far, if you need further clarification.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandat Pranam. Hare Krishna Mataji. Only one question. I think you will be recording this session, and we'll be creating a separate group also for Bhakti Sastri, so that we get those links to the recording. We can listen to the same.
Yeah, that's a very good point. We'll be doing that. We are recording this conference call, so we'll share the MP3 file for the conference call. Zoom also, I'm trying to record and see if it will record the whole session, how long it will record. So this is the first time we are trying recording on the Zoom itself. So we'll see how that goes, but we'll figure out a way to have everything recorded. We'll create a separate WhatsApp group for people who are part of this Bhakti Sastri, also an email group to send you all the information.
And I think from time to time, I think another thing we can also do is for people to offer presentations.
Yeah.
Maybe even like, do some collaborative work. And because I remember we'd done this long time ago. It really benefited. So yeah, we're hoping to, and of course, feedback is always appreciated. So if you feel that there's something we can do to make this better, just let us know.
And we want to make this like not just, everybody is actually teaching and everybody is learning. So we are just the facilitators. So everybody should feel that they can talk, they can present something. If you are in the presenters mode and the learning mode, then you'll actually get more out of it. So we don't want it to be like a passive group where we're just presenting and you're just listening, because then your learning will be less. Rather, everybody actively thinks about things and feels free. There is no question or no comment that you make will be considered out of line. So you can feel free that you can speak anything that you want.
So any further clarification or questions?
Hare Krishna Mataji, this is Vishal.
Yes.
I have a question. So the timing for this will remain from Tuesday 7 to 8 or 7 to 8:30. Is that the timing, or we're going to change the timing or stay consistent with this?
Yeah, we'd like to stay consistent 7 to 8:30 because an hour and a half is needed. Vishal Prabhu asked those who are on the phone that what will be the timing, 7 on Tuesday, 7 to 8:30. That's what I guess we felt that will work. 7 to 8:30 is not too early, not too late for men who are working. They get the time to come back home and still join. So it's really hard to find one time that works for everybody. But I guess most of you have joined today, so I feel that maybe this is a good time. Do you have any concern about the time?
No concern, Prabhuji. Just wanted to make sure that I can book my this
Schedule.
Yeah. No, I think that's our plan. And even if we go to India, which we are planning to, we want to continue the Bhakti Sastri every week.
So 7 o'clock in America, after the daylight saving time begins, will be what time in India? 5:30 in the morning?
7 is 5:30 in the morning. That's correct.
That's okay.
Okay. So
we should
that should not be a problem.
Yeah.
So
So
4:30 after the daylight saving time changes.
Oh, after so this will change. So maybe at that time you can we can adjust it to
adjust it a little bit.
Okay.
Maybe 8 o'clock will start or 7. We can talk about it. Yeah.
So anything else? Or we can start.
I
had a question about the group. Like if we have questions when we're reading the books during the week, can we post questions somewhere during the week before class?
That's a very good point. And as I mentioned, I'll create a WhatsApp group just for this class. So that would be a good place to post your questions. And we'll also create an email group for this. So you can feel free to post it in either or both places. Email is
both places are fine. Actually, that can become a very nice, because what happens is that we are just meeting for some time.
Yeah.
But during the week, as we are discussing, thinking about it,
then it becomes more powerful.
Yeah. So we can actually even share our realizations, maybe something that we heard in some other class that connects to the point that we discussed. So that becomes, I guess, our learning can be much deeper if we are connected even during the week.
Yeah.
And so I think Kalindi, I think we should definitely do that.
Yeah, definitely. Anybody else? Sanju, you have any question or?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. So regarding the question, so I think in my understanding, Doodle group or email may be more better. In that way, if someone joins, let's say after some time, they can always go back and check the history and the discussions. In WhatsApp, you just see like what is coming after joining the group. So in that way, you have a full database for the email groups.
Okay, so Kalindi Prema will, I think all the questions, they can be posted. They should be posted on the email group. We'll create a Google group for that. And maybe also if you want, you can post it on WhatsApp group, but at least they must be on the email group. Anybody else has any question? Sumit, Nikunja Saki, Priyankar.
Another thing that I think we would like to bring to focus in this Bhakti Sastri, which will be unique about this Bhakti Sastri, is also to see how what we are studying applies to our current situation, like our current mood and mission. Because I think one of the aims of the Bhakti Sastri is to connect with Prabhupada's mood and mission, right? Yeah. And so that is at the global level, but also the fact is that all of this knowledge, again, bringing it to the practical realm means that how do we apply this in connecting with Prabhupada's mood and mission as we are trying to execute.
That's a very important part. Actually, in the Bhakti Sastri course, there I think 6 or 7 learning objectives, and one of them is the mood and mission of Prabhupada. Learning what the mood and mission of Prabhupada is, and also then imbibing that mood and mission of Prabhupada. The second objective is to our own personal realization, developing our personal realization. The third one is preaching objective, where we learn how to present this philosophy and in a way that is relevant to people. People see this in a positive way, and it makes them favorable to Krishna consciousness. So the same and this is an art to how to present this philosophy so people don't get offended, rather they get enthused about this philosophy. So that is also will be an objective that you should keep in mind. Another objective is to being able to resolve so many conflicting things that will come up in our discussion. So somewhere it is said this and somewhere it is said that, and how do I resolve these contradictions? Or sometimes Prabhupada will say something, a statement that is very, very strong. And you'll often encounter that in Prabhupada's purports. You'll say something which is maybe politically, seems like politically incorrect or against the popular norms. So how do we understand that, and how do we understand it ourselves, and also how do we explain it to others? So there will be many such things that will come up. So it's not just one stream of learning, but it will be learning at multiple levels that hopefully we can all develop in that area together.
So any other questions from the conference call before we head right in?
Yes, Mataji, I have a question. Hare Krishna Prabhu. And the question is, like, what time frame are we looking at, considering the volume of each book? And like, how many weeks for the first one, and how many weeks for the second one, and so henceforth?
I guess the Nectar of Instruction will at least take us about, I mean, depending on how deeper we go, but at least 3 months. And Sri Ishopanishad also has 18 verses. So each verse will take at least 1 week. And there is an introduction. So that's itself is 4 months there, 4 or 5 months. Nectar of Devotion has 19 chapters. So even if you devote 1 chapter a week,
I mean, we have to decide as a group how fast we want to go with this.
Yeah, how fast or how slow we want to go with this, because I mean, we have to keep a fine balance of going at a certain speed and yet not leaving things out. So that is something we can do. I think after doing the first book, we'll have a more general idea. Bhagavad Gita, it has 700 verses, and obviously we won't have time to go through the purport of each and every verse. We'll go through the purports of some important verses, but the responsibility will fall upon you guys to go through each purport. So Bhagavad Gita itself takes at least a year or more, depending on how much, again, time we. So we are looking at least 2 years for the whole Bhakti Sastri course, and maybe a little bit more, depending on what speed we take.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. And just one suggestion I meant to say, since we are going to go for 1.5 hours, not sure like if 8 to 9:30 would be option, so that we can finish everything on the home front, and we can sincerely and seriously involve ourselves for next 1.5 hours.
Okay, so maybe we can
8 to 9:30. You're saying that it gives enough time to finish things on the home front, but I guess 9:30 gets a little bit late for some people, right?
I don't know. Is that okay?
It becomes a little late for us.
It does become late, right? Yeah. I think let's just. Yeah. Okay, there was someone else at the conference call.
One more thing, like how to make judicious use of time that we have. Like we are planning for 1.5 hours, and making a judicious use of time. Like, can we have like for question and answers another day or something?
I don't know. I mean, we want to keep it organic. I think I guess we have to go back to our purpose. Our purpose here is not to finish these books. That is not our purpose. Our purpose is really to, right?
Yeah, even if you're not able to cover every single line of the purport for a particular verse, that's okay. But the thing is to get out the most out of what is the most important thing that we want to get out of it, and then discuss that a little bit, so that assimilation is more. Without question and answers, then if you do the question and answer for the same purport the next week, then people kind of forget, and then it takes us more time. So I think we have to kind of adjust as we go. We'll see how it goes with this group, and then we'll correct and adjust.
Sure, Prabhuji. We'll go as per the schedule that you have. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
What was the question?
No, that's fine.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, and if you have any further comments or questions, we can always discuss that. Any suggestions? We'll create the groups and then we can take it from there.
So, should we do the preface?
Yeah, we can read the preface from the Nectar of Instruction.
Actually, our thing is that we are planning to starting next week, but today we just wanted to, give you a little,
get our feet wet and get into the mindset that, okay, we are starting today. So preface is very short, actually. It's like 2 or 3 paragraphs, and people can take turns to read them. So whoever wants to read it, please announce that, and then you can read it. 1 paragraph per person.
Can I start?
Who's that?
Srinivas here.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can read the first paragraph, and then next person can read.
Okay. The Krishna consciousness movement is conducted under the supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami. The Gaudiya Vaishnavas or Bengali Vaishnavas are mostly followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of whom the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavana are direct disciples. Therefore, Srila Narottama Das Thakur has sung Rupa Raghunatha Pade Haibe Akuti Kabe Hama Mujahabe Se Yugala Priti.
Thank you. So, you want to say anything here?
Should we continue this because it kind of flows after this?
That's okay.
Yes?
The next person can read that, the next paragraph.
Yeah.
Okay, Sumit is going.
When I am eager to understand the literature given by the Goswami, then I shall be able to understand the transcendental loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in order to bestow upon human society the benediction of the signs of Krishna. The most exalted of all the activities of Lord Krishna are his pastime of conjugal love with the gopis. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in the mood of Srimati Radharani, the best of the gopis. Therefore, to understand the mission of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and follow in his footsteps, one must very closely follow in the footsteps of his Goswamis. Sri Rupa, Sanatana, Bhatta Raghunatha, Sri Jiva, Gopal Bhatta, and Dasa Raghunatha.
So this is actually, the first 2 paragraphs are, when I started reading it, I found it quite profound. Normally, Prabhupada would not talk about the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna so early in a book. And it's quite interesting how in the preface itself, Prabhupada is directly taking us to, that the purpose of this book is to understand the transcendental loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. And this is a very high subject matter. Even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not directly discuss the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna with common people. It was only reserved for his most confidential devotees. So the fact that Srila Prabhupada is bringing that right out the front, and he's connecting that with how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mood was to bestow upon human society the benediction of the signs of Krishna, and to actually bestow this conjugal love with the gopis is such a confidential matter. But that can be learned by following in the footsteps of the 6 Goswamis, especially Rupa Goswami. Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hoibe Akuti Kabe Ama Bhujabo Se Jugal Priti. So that is the benediction that is offered in this book, and one can have that by having this mood of servitude to Srila Rupa Goswami and the 6 Goswamis. Anything else to add?
I just, the word that caught my attention was it's conducted under the supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami. So how Krishna consciousness is always conducted under the supervision. Just like if a person wants to learn surgery, then he has to first be trained up to become a surgeon. So in the same way, so what does it mean? I was listening to a lecture and Viraj was making a point that how there. Okay. So he was making this point that how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is both the seed and the tree of this bhakti, this bhakti tree. And planted seed is...
People can mute themselves if they're doing other things along with...
Okay. Yeah, you have to mute.
Who is not muted?
I think go down. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, she was saying that how, Madhavendra Puri was actually the seed, right? And then from that seed, grew this big tree. And so Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the seed, he's the tree, he's also the gardener. And then it went on to talk about how the tree has many different branches. And it describes in Chaitanya Charitamrita how Advaita Acharya is one of the branch and Nityananda Prabhu is one of the branch. And then Prabhupada in that section, he says that actually how ISKCON is also one of the branch. And so then Maharaj was making this point about how that, when Prabhupada is saying that ISKCON is one of the branch, it means that actually Prabhupada is one of the branch. So when we are saying that we are actually, this Krishna consciousness movement is conducted under the supervision of Srila Rupa Goswami, what it really means is that it is being conducted under the direct supervision of Prabhupada, who is one of the branch of the Chaitanya tree. And he's also the gardener, right? So he's also, he's saying that how many fruits can I distribute?
And the other thing that struck me, that's a very good point, that like many times people say that Prabhupada's books they appear very simple, and Prabhupada doesn't really go deeper into talking about the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna in any of his purports, not so much at all. But at the same time, you can see that here Prabhupada is directly offering that highest benediction, that by reading his books, one can actually understand the transcendental loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. So that benediction is already offered by the mercy of Prabhupada. If we just understand his mood and mission, and if we apply ourselves to dedicating to serve Prabhupada with our heart and soul, then this benediction is already given here. I was quite surprised at how Prabhupada started out this whole book by talking about loving affairs of Radha and Krishna rather than anything else.
That's actually very true. And, also we understand, right, that, and I think maybe you'll be covering that later, about how the Nectar of Instruction actually does take you to some of the most esoteric reality. It starts out from a very basic level and it goes up. And so sometimes, and this is another thing we will be addressing as we go through this, that sometimes people say that Prabhupada didn't give us everything. But this shows that actually Prabhupada has given us the highest. And I think another point that was made was that sometimes Prabhupada's purports may seem deceptively simple, which means that we may feel like he's just speaking very basic knowledge, but actually embedded within that philosophy is actually the deepest realization. And this is one place where you can see that he's offering us the highest benediction. It says that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared to offer the highest benediction of the signs of Krishna. And then the most exalted are this conjugal love with the gopis.
Yeah, and then if you look at the shloka itself, it says, Rupa Raghunatha Pade Hoibe Akuti. Like, when will I have that unflinching attachment to the lotus feet of Rupa and Raghunath? And what will you get after that? He could have given anything. He could have said that you'll become a pure devotee, you will go to Vaikuntha, you will go to Goloka. There are so many benedictions that can come out from that attachment to Rupa and Raghunath. But Narottam Das Thakur is directly saying, Kabe hame bhujago se yugal priti. That is, the yugal priti means the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. So by having an attachment to Rupa and Raghunath, this is the highest goal one should aspire for. So he's also saying that rather than aspiring for Vaikuntha or any of the other goals in devotional life, one should aspire for this goal of really understanding the science of the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna.
Very, very nice. And I was just also reflecting on this last line, very seriously follow. So this is our process. Our process is to very seriously follow in the footsteps of the 6 Goswamis. So what that means is to try and imbibe the mood and the mission and to really closely follow. So we've been speaking for some time. Should we?
Any reflections or thoughts so far?
And even those that have probably done Bhakti Sastri, you can also add anything if you feel.
So, Mataji Prabhu, I have a few points to give submit here.
Yeah.
So one thing which caught my attention was the first line, eager to understand the literature. This is a prerequisite to be able to understand the transcendental loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. Then so one thing, I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much between the lines, but it says Radha and Krishna, not Krishna and Radha. So Radha's name is taken first.
Good observation, yeah. Yeah, for those of you who are on Zoom and he could not hear Sumit, he was making the point that he particularly liked how it says, when you're eager to understand the literature of the Goswamis, then we become able to understand the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. And he was, it struck him that the name of Radha was kind of mentioned before Krishna, which is the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the mood of Radharani. So he found that fascinating. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I actually thought about Sumit Prabhu's point. So every god, like we say Sita Ram, Radhe Shyam, so every time the consort comes first.
Right.
Yes.
So that's something to do with that you can approach the Lord only through the feminine energy. Is that?
Yes, that is true.
That is true.
That is true.
Okay, so we can continue.
You can continue.
I need you. You need me.
Sri Rupa Goswami was the leader of all the Goswamis, and to guide our activities, he gave us this Upadeshamrita, the nectar of instruction to follow. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left behind him the 8 verses known as Sikshastaka, Rupa Goswami gave us the Upadeshamrita so that we may become pure Vaishnavas. So this kind of describes the purpose of the book and why Rupa Goswami gave us this book. Actually, it's a very fascinating book. Upadeshamrita, Rupa Goswami wrote so many books and like hundreds of thousands of verses he wrote. And some very advanced topics he wrote that we don't have access to. He wrote the Nectar of Devotion and Lalita Madhava, Vidagdha Madhava, so many books he wrote. And of all the books that he wrote, he took out the essence from all these books. What is the most important thing that one should learn from all his teachings? And that he condensed in this Upadeshamrita. It's like a sandesh that he cooked for hours, like days and days and days and years, and took out this special fragrant nectar of instruction, Upadeshamrita.
And like Manoram Prabhu was saying the other day, right, that so many of these books were actually buried.
Yeah.
So we don't even have access to so much of the Goswami literature.
A bulk of his teachings, like what Rupa Sanatan wrote and all these other Goswamis wrote, they just wrote it and then they buried it inside the ground because they knew that these books people won't be able to understand them and they will misuse them. So that is beyond our access. So this Upadeshamrita, just an overview, what this book does is it takes one from the very beginning stages of bhakti, which is the sense control and mind control, and all the way to the highest love of God, which is the love of Srimati Radharani. It takes the person who is able to follow it and then imbibe it, and the person can see that result. And any of these books are not just like that, okay, we have the information that, okay, this is this. But actually by following these books, one can actually get to that stage. Otherwise, he would not have written these books. So Upadeshamrita and instruction is useless if nobody can follow it or nobody can achieve the result that is mentioned in the instruction. So everybody can actually achieve these results that are given in this book, and we can actually help each other. And the Nectar of Instruction allows one to go from, so the first verse talks about anartha nivritti, which is giving up our unwanted habits, bad habits, and things like that, which are harmful to our devotional service. And then it talks about how to practice bhakti, practical ways of practicing bhakti. So there are no higher principles given, but just practical essence of how you can be a good devotee, and then what are the things you should do, what are the things you should not do. And then he goes into sadhu sangha, which is a very important aspect of bhakti, how to associate with devotees, what we should do, how we can deepen our relationship with devotees, what are the different kinds of devotees and how to associate with each one of them, how to identify them, like that. And then it goes into higher and higher aspects of devotees, practicing devotional service, finally ending with developing the love of Srimati Radharani. So
I was also thinking that I remember on our Friday night, some of the devotees who are present in this Zoom and online, they asked this question, how do you practically, like there's so many practical questions, right? What does surrender mean? How does one practice Krishna consciousness? Because when we've been studying the Bhagavad Gita and we have a fair idea of the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, but where we actually struggle the most is the application. And Upadeshamrita is actually a very practical manual.
It's all application.
It's all application. Both Nectar of Devotion and Nectar of Instruction is completely about how do we get there, and what are the obstacles that we need to be mindful of, and how do we overcome those obstacles. So it's a very practical book, and I think if we keep it, if we accept it in that mood, then what happens is that we also, because we are sitting at the lotus feet of Prabhupada and Rupa Goswami, we also derive the strength to actually overcome those bad habits.
Bad habits and
obstacles.
Okay. In all spiritual affairs, maybe you want to read this information.
In all spiritual affairs, one's first duty is to control his mind and senses. Unless one controls his mind and senses, one cannot make any advancement in spiritual life. Everyone within this material world is engrossed in the modes of passion and ignorance. One must promote himself to the platform of goodness, Sattva Guna, by following the instructions of Rupa Goswami, and then everything concerning how to make further progress will be revealed. So I think we can discuss this. This next one is very good.
We'll discuss this when we do the actual sloka.
You want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. So you want to...
Advancement in Krishna consciousness depends on the attitude of the follower, and this is a very important aspect of our own development. We can have knowledge, we can have ability to practice Krishna consciousness very strictly. We can memorize things very good. All those things are there, but if you don't have the right attitude, then everything will fall apart as a devotee. So one of the aspects of, very key aspect of Bhakti Sastri is to help us all develop the right attitude while we are practicing devotional service. Without the proper attitude, it just doesn't come together for us.
Actually, attitude is so important that even if one is lacking in all the other areas, but if one has the right attitude, then just like, for example, there's a past time where this devotee went to Prabhupada and Prabhupada was trying to teach him the Gayatri mantra. And this devotee simply could not pronounce the Sanskrit. And then finally Prabhupada just started laughing. He said, that's all right. That's all right. So, if we have everything else, but we don't have the right attitude, then no matter what we have, we cannot make advancement. And if we have attitude, even if there is some lacking somewhere else, then that lacking is taken care of. Just like in also the story of the Brahmana who was trying to study the Bhagavad Gita without knowing the Sanskrit. So what did he have that pleased Chaitanya Mahaprabhu so much? It was his attitude. That because my spiritual master has asked me to read the Bhagavad Gita, even though I don't understand Sanskrit, I don't even know how to read or write, but I'm trying. And because of that, I'm experiencing these symptoms of ecstasy. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu acknowledged and said, yes, you've understood the Bhagavad Gita. So we have to, we are not here to become great scholars. We're simply here, again, to reiterate, we're here to become servants.
And attitude is the most important part of a servant, aspect of a servant. And attitude is not just a thing in the mind, but it's a verb actually. How we bring into action what our beliefs are, and with what mood we bring them into action. So let us try to help each other in developing this right attitude of a follower. A follower of Krishna consciousness movement should become a perfect Goswami. Vaishnavas are generally known as Goswamis. In Vrindavan, this is the title by which the director of each temple is known. One who wants to become a perfect devotee of Krishna must become a Goswami. Go means the senses and Swami means the master. Unless one controls his senses and mind, one cannot become a Goswami. To achieve the highest success in life by becoming a Goswami and then a pure devotee of the Lord, one must follow the instructions known as Upadeshamrita, which have been given by Srila Rupa Goswami. Srila Rupa Goswami has given many books such as Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Radha Madhava and Lalita Madhava. Upadeshamrita constitutes the first instructions for neophyte devotees. One should follow these instructions very strictly, then it will be easier to make one's life successful. Hare Krishna. So for the next class, we'll start discussing the first verse. So your homework for this week is to let me go to where is the first verse? To text 1. If you can read the translation and purport, And then once we create a group, you can start posting if you have any thoughts or questions or whatever, so that some churning can happen before we come and discuss this verse. Because if we just discuss it cold next week, then we won't get the most out of it. So if everybody can start thinking about, read it in the next couple of days and start thinking about it and maybe put some comments or questions in the group, then that will be really helpful.
So any questions, comments, or any further expansion on what we have spoken so far?
Hare Krishna Mataji, quick question.
Yeah.
So here, Nectar of Instructions. Which instructions we are talking about? Is it an instruction from a guru or an instruction from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu or instruction from Krishna specifically? I mean, if you can elaborate on that, that will be really helpful.
Yeah, this is a nectar of instruction from all of them. These are the instructions that Rupa Goswami is giving to us. And whatever Rupa Goswami is given to us is coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu instructed Rupa Goswami for 3 months at the Ganges, and then he gave him all the knowledge of Bhakti science and asked him to write this down. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself did not write anything down. So that job was done by Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and the 6 Goswamis. So whatever instructions we are getting here, they are coming directly from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and through the medium of the Guru Parampara, they are coming to us finally. So there is no difference.
Yeah, this is actually, I'm glad that you brought this point out, Vishal Prabhu, because this is a very important point to always remember, that there is no difference. The instruction that is given by Krishna, that is given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that is given by the 6 Goswamis, that is given by Prabhupada, that is given by the disciples of Prabhupada who may be our spiritual master, or given by a senior god brother, god sister, or any representative of the spiritual master. There is absolutely no difference. And that's a discussion that I'm sure will come up later. But just to make that point that it is coming from everyone. I think if I understand your question, this is Rupa Goswami speaking directly based on what he had heard from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Yes. Sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Anybody else on the call or Zoom? Incidentally, what's his name? Hanumat Krishek Maharaj. His favorite book is The Nectar of Instruction.
What is it?
He always carries The Nectar of Instruction with him and is continuously reading. I think he reads this book every day.
Wow.
Yeah. It's his favorite book. So please go ahead and share, because that way we can have some reflection and some discussion.
Hare Krishna Mataji, Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Vivek here.
Oh, Hare Krishna Vivek Prabhu, thank you for joining.
Thank you Mataji and Prabhuji. So just one point in the last paragraph that was striking for me is Prabhupada writes in the purport stating that the Upadeshamrita constitutes the first instructions for nearby devotees like me. And then he says that one should follow these instructions very strictly, then it will be easier to make one's life successful. So the instructions means that we need to follow, otherwise there is no point in somebody giving instructions to us. So Prabhupada makes it very clear here that these instructions given by Rupa Goswami, if one takes it seriously, then he can make progress.
Very nice.
That's a very, very beautiful point, Vivek Prabhu. It's very simple and very straightforward. Instructions need to be followed.
I was also thinking that, in the beginning of this paragraph, Prabhupada is saying that the Vaishnavas are generally known as Goswamis. Then he says that one who wants to become a perfect devotee must become a Goswami. So I was thinking that how Prabhupada actually made this point very, very, when he was asked, how do you recognize a devotee, right? The Prabhupada said the way you will recognize my follower is that he will be a perfect gentleman and a gentle lady. So this point about being able to follow, being able to follow instructions and being situated with proper attitude is actually most important aspect of becoming Prabhupada's disciple and representative.
Yeah, and following the instructions requires that we have some amount of implicit faith, Shraddha in the Guru Parampara where the instructions are coming from. And even though we may not understand everything, every detail, and that is possible, that we may not understand every single detail, but because they are coming from these great personalities, these pure devotees, then we just follow them implicitly. They're okay. Just like a doctor says something to us, we may not understand every single thing, but we follow because we have an implicit faith. So to have that kind of implicit faith in Prabhupada and these Goswamis, it will save us a lot of hassle, and we can make rapid advancement.
Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Priyankar Mataji.
Yes.
And Prabhu, I'm actually already getting interested in this after reading the preface. And I had this feeling from inside that I should read, but there was some inertia. And after listening to the commentary, it really excited my desire to go through. And I think before the next class, I think it will be better that we all read it so that we are at some understanding of the first verse and then start from there.
Yeah,
that's wonderful.
That's wonderful.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And here is the other thing, that Nectar of Instruction, these principles, even, we are talking about these principles as being applicable to our spiritual life, but these principles are universal principles.
Yeah, they will apply for every aspect of our life.
Yeah.
Our emotional life, our work life, any aspect of our material life even. They are very powerful principles that will elevate us in every single way.
Yeah, our interactions.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, thank you, Priyanka Prabhu. Anybody else, even the ones that are just attending, even though they're doing Bhakti Sastri, in other places, please feel free if you guys have something you want to add to the discussion.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, this is Akshana Mangala.
Akshana, Hare Krishna.
One of the instruction is controlling the mind and the senses, and also transcending from the mode of ignorance and passion to the goodness. So it was listed very nicely, like without transcending the modes and without controlling the mind and senses, it is impossible. So I think following these instructions will help us to control the mind and senses. Unless we have the right instructions, it's very difficult to control the mind.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Srinivas here. So actually, I find reading these books, especially the Gita and the Nectar of Devotion, and I've been reading the teachings of Chaitanya. They impart a positivity in your thought, and that actually, like as Loka Prabhuji said, that it affects every sphere of your life. That is like practically experienced that.
Thank you for sharing.
You become positive. You do get some negative thoughts, but they are out as soon as, like, every day if you read for an hour, that actually I have felt myself change.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll end it here, and then next week we'll start at 7 o'clock, and then kindly read the next verse. I'll just recite the next verse so that this is the verse that you have to also memorize as part of the Bhakti Sastri.
Just one second. Kalindi, are you on board? I mean, do you have any questions, or are you?
So I was just wondering if this one's in Bengali or Sanskrit, because I can't tell the difference quite yet.
This is still Sanskrit.
Okay.
All the verses in this book are in Sanskrit.
Awesome. Thank you.
Bengali flows a little bit differently, and you'll start recognizing that. So this one goes like this: Vacho vegam, manasaha krodha vegam, jivha vegam, udaropastha vegam, etan vegan yo vishaheta dhira, sarvam apimam prithvim sashishat. So it's again about mind and sense control. A sober person who can tolerate the urge to speak, the mind's demands, the actions of anger, and the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals, is qualified to make disciples all over the world. So this is a question for you guys to think about. Why is Rupa Goswami talking about becoming qualified to make disciples all over the world? what is the connection? We just talked about in the preface. Prabhupada says this is for the neophyte devotee. Why is he talking about becoming qualified to make disciples all over the world, but just controlling the mind and the senses? But some thought for you, food for thought for you, and then think about that, read the purport, and then we'll discuss it.
Are we also memorizing shlokas as we go?
So this one needs to be memorized. So you can also start memorizing it, and memorize it from the point of view of again, these are vibrations coming from the mouth of Rupa Goswami. So when these vibrations go into our head and our brain, and we think about them, they will purify us. So memorization should be done in that spirit, not the spirit of mastering the verse, but taking this medicine. Think of this verse as a medicine or like a vitamin that you're taking, and it will move through your system, it will move through your brain, and it will purify you, and it will remind you of certain things and help you. So in that spirit, we can memorize these verses. Thank you all, and we'll see you again next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Dandat.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
We stop the recording.
This session is no longer being recorded.
Thank you, Nikunja.
Thank you so much.
Hare
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah,
Introduction.